Hey, everybody. So, before we get started, hold up. I just want to be very clear here that this is despite the fact I'm out brewing. Chris is among the very, very, very best marketers on the planet, and it's just so awesome to have you here. You know, they're calling it fans and brands, and if you think about brands that connect with their fans on just a really, really special level, there's probably very few brands that can compete with Chipotle. Just awesome. So what I thought we could do is open up, and Chris, tell us the story. Tell us a little bit about Chipotle, and then we'll get into the rest of it, because it is just such a special brand.
Yeah, so I started in Chipotle in 2018, and I was always a big fan of Chipotle from before, and even as a consumer. And so maybe I'll just back up and give you a little bit of my history. So I worked at, I went to business school at UCLA, went to undergrad at UC San Diego, so that's why I don't like anybody from USC. But no, it's great. But and then when I got out of business school, I went to General Mills for a while, and then I worked at Coke and a brand called Walla, and then I left there and went to go work and ultimately became the CMO of Taco Bell. And so I worked there for 5 years, and then I left for 2 years and went to go to Bloomin' Brands. And when Brian Nichol, who was the CEO of Taco Bell when I was there, he left and took over the CEO job of Chipotle. He asked me to come and be the CMO of Chipotle. So I've been the CMO of Chipotle since 2018. And I think when we got to Chipotle in 2018, the brand had just lost a lot of confidence. They had a lot of food safety issues in 2015 and 2016. So when we got there, and they solved all of those food safety things. I think, and one of the things is Chipotle, all of our food is made fresh every day. Chipotle is a real restaurant. It's a big difference than most other places in our category, which are just reheating things and then putting them out there. But Chipotle, the inside of Chipotle looks more like a farmer's market in the morning than any other restaurant I've ever been in. And I've been doing this for 20 plus years. I mean, back when my beard was, actually brown. So, but I think that, they had just lost a lot of confidence. But at its core, Chipotle is craveable food that you feel good about eating. And you think how rare that is in your life. Most things that taste really good don't feel that great about eating. Most things you feel good about eating don't taste that great. So when I got to Chipotle, I didn't know a lot of the food with integrity things and a lot of sustainability. I knew that they did it, but I couldn't articulate what it was. And so it was more special than I even imagined what they were doing. I found this out that it looks more like a farmer's market in the morning because I had to do store trading there, like my first day or two, and it was incredible. And just seeing that. So, but what we had was, and I think the scope of change that we did was a complete 180 from what they did before. The marketing group was very decentralized. They didn't do a lot of mainstream media. They had a lot of people who were nice people, but they weren't professionals in their job. Like the person who was running media had never really run media before. The person doing social media, he was the second restaurant manager in the system and had been there a long time. Again, a nice guy, but not exactly, hip to the kids and what's going on in Gen Z in terms of media. So we had a lot of work to do, and we moved our headquarters, and so that really enabled us to take some great people that we brought with us from Denver, where they were headquartered before, but also to really get people who were great people, number one, and then number two, really professionals in their field. And the other part was that I really had never experienced before was how strong the brand's mission was. And not every big brand is blessed with a great mission. And Taco Bell started to make money, like during the 50s and during the drive-thru craze. We created Live Más, and that's okay. But at Chipotle, we had a founder there, Steve Ells. It was a founder-inspired mission of cultivating a better world and doing sustainable food and those kind of things. And that really permeated the organization in a way that I had never seen before. I mean, I remember there was a gal I would talk to. She was 20 years old. She had been at Chipotle for a year. She was one of the top operators already in the system. The reason I was talking to her because she had won some award. And I just asked her, I said, well, how did you find Chipotle? And she said to me, she goes, oh, I was only going to work at one of three places when I made the job. I was going to work at Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, or Chipotle, because those are the only places that align with my values. And I looked at her, and I must have had like a questioning look on my face, because I remember back when I was 19, and I'm pretty sure for an extra $1 an hour, I would have rolled cigarettes and be asbestos. So I was amazed, and so that was amazing that this brand purpose permeates from the headquarters, but all the way out into it. We're also unique that we own every single one of our restaurants. We don't have any franchisees, we don't have a holding company. It's just us. And we're blessed with some really talented people. I think Brian Nichols is probably the most talented. Don't tell me this. So this is not the record. He's probably the most talented person I've ever worked with. But working with him, our CTO, our COO, our CFO, Jack is incredible. He probably held the thing together during all the troubles. But we had to restore confidence. We changed the marketing up. We changed a lot of the people up. We changed our approach up. I mean, a lot of the digital and social was very pun-based. It was just very superficial. We looked for more insights. We looked for more people how to use Chipotle. One of the things we just really implemented was, as we got into it, we discovered how many athletes eat at Chipotle, and because the food is so clean. And at Chipotle, no matter what lifestyle you eat, whether it's keto, Whole30, paleo, whether you're trying to cut, whether you're trying to gain, you can do it really easily at Chipotle. And so we had so many athletes, we created real food for real athletes. And the idea is, I want Chipotle to be the training table for high school, college athletes and beyond, for everybody who's an athlete like that. And so we've been lucky because there's so many organic stories of guys who just go to Chipotle, whether it's Chase Young and Justin Fields. And we did a piece with Trey Lance and Jerry Rice. Kyler Murray comes in twice a week. I mean, it's really a cool kind of thing. And all these organic stories we created, if you go online, you can search Team Chipotle. We kicked it off really with the Summer Olympics. We got a lot of Summer Olympians who grew up with Chipotle. Same for winter. We have guys on the U.S. soccer team. U.S. soccer team's a great story. Like Christian Pulisic and Weston McKennie are guys that we signed for not a whole lot of money. But they have the core group of players on the U.S. soccer team who are elite players and playing for big clubs for the first time in America's history, and are super young guys, and they call themselves the boys. The first place the boys gather and eat is at Chipotle when they come back, even before we sponsor it. So it's a really nice synergy, and everything's very organic in terms of the feel and what we have. We have a great team that does social and digital. So I think our goal at the beginning was be more visible, more relevant, and more loved. And that's what we try to do. And our strategy really is drive difference. The difference is real food. That's where For Real came from. The Chipotle really never had a tagline before. And the beauty of For Real was that it was new, but it harkened back to the tradition the company had before. And the other part that was important about the tagline was, because we own all of our own restaurants, we have 80, 100,000 people. They needed a rally cry. We needed to show this something that was different. And so we changed up the media plan. We're much more centralized. Now we're all over sports. We want to be all over cultural moments as we become more relevant. So we want to be, in the NFL. We just signed a deal with the NHL. We want to be across all those major sporting events as an advertiser, not necessarily as a big sponsor. But that's been the philosophy that we've had, and that's how we got started. And it's really worked. We just had our fourth quarter and 2021 results. The other thing I'll say is, and this is where you ask one question, just stick in order, and I just keep going. But we started in 2018. So at the end of 2018, we did 4.9 billion in sales. At the end of 2021, we did $7.5 billion in sales. And I think we were less than 10% of our business was digital. We had a great app, so that the IT group and technology created a great app, but nobody knew it existed. And in 2018 and 2019, we grew a lot in digital. I think we ended 2019 at 20% of our business was digital. Like in December now, we're like 45%. And the cool thing about Chipotle and the digital make line is kind of our superpower, because we have that front make line where everybody comes through, but we also have a separate make line in the back just for digital orders. And that can be staffed by fewer people. And then all the digital orders that come in don't interfere with the front line, because Chipotle is a throughput machine. The heritage that nobody can move people through the line like Chipotle can. And Chipotle was very innovative. Back, it started in 1993. I'll tell a little bit of the story of that. So some of this going out of sequence maybe, but Steve L started the business, and Steve was a chef by training. And he actually started Chipotle because he wanted to open a high-end restaurant. High-end restaurants generally don't make a lot of money. So he opened the Chipotle as a way to finance that high-end restaurant. Well, it just took off like crazy. And Steve started with, he didn't know a bunch about sustainability and food integrity. He just knew what was good food and was fresh food. And that's what he wanted for his restaurant. And the stories we've heard from suppliers about, hey, just make sure they're like, there was one great story of, we were doing carnitas, and you're buying a pork shoulder, and they're like, what a lot of places do is, they'll inject more fat in it, they'll put more water in there, and to make it bigger. And he's like, just promise me you'll never do that to anything that we have on this one. And those were really great principles that the brand could and lives on to this day. And I think it was interesting when Brian and I came in, so we had a bit of a QSR background, and the first question people were asking us was, "Are you guys going to cheapen the food?" And we're like, "Hell no! I mean, this is our competitive edge. We're going to double down." And so I remember one of the first meetings we had as the executive team, we revamped the supply chain. We had a supply chain guy come in. He goes, we buy almost all of the organic cilantro that's out there, and it beats about 25 or 30% of what we can have. And they said, we can't make a claim around it, we can't do it. He goes, it would save us however many millions of dollars if we didn't buy organic cilantro. And we're like, okay, well, we're not doing that. How do we get more organic cilantro? So we started working with farmers to transition fields, and it takes about 3 years to transition a field from regular to organic. But we started working because no, we're not interested in saving money that way. We're interested in how do we get more organic cilantro so that we can have more supply. So I think that was a good litmus test. I think for the organization to see what the leadership, what are they going to do? Are they going to put their money where their mouth is? And that's what we did. So we've had a great run, but we're just getting started. I mean, we have 3,000 restaurants today. We think we can have 7,000 in America. And then we have about 25 in Europe. They're really starting to cash flow. Certainly COVID slowed them down a little bit, but we think we can be big in Europe. In Canada, we have about 25 again. They're really starting to take off. You'll see us have hundreds of restaurants there. So, we've made a lot of progress. We think we have the best food. I tell my team, look, this is the way people should eat. Real is better. It's better for you as a person. It's better for people in general. It's better for the planet. So we're the good guys. We're supposed to win. So
awesome. All right. Well, thanks very much.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot there. There's so much there, and sustainability is at the core. And I won't do it now. We'll be here till tomorrow with the answer. But the big story, and just what you saw with the pork part, it's just awesome. So the other thing I've noticed in interacting with you, Brandt, so much is, the CMO is supposed to be the ultimate cheerleader for the brand, but you feel this with every employee, with every agency that you work with. You feel it with your customers. So it's just amazing. I want to talk innovation. I want to talk sports. But before, you hit on a lot of things. You talked about supply chain. So where we are now with these inflation numbers coming out, a tough, clogged supply chain. How are you managing that as a business, and what does that mean over the next few months for business?
Yeah, look, it's tough. We're not immune from the pressures everybody else has had. I think what our supply chain group has done a great job. And but we ran out of lids, so we were out of lids for the bowls for a while. So we had to find a solution. We've changed. We used to have just-in-time inventory like everybody else. Well, just-in-time now means out of inventory. So we hold packaging like 6 months. We're buying 6 months worth of inventory for that. We've had to take some price. It's been very well publicized. We had to take some price because the inputs are going up, and actually we're just with a bunch of suppliers across the industry, not necessarily just Chipotle suppliers, but they're talking about taking another 10%. We had our tortilla supplier has taken about 25% increase in price since last September. So we're kind of like, whoa. I mean, the beauty is, and we used to talk about this back even in 2019, where the company typically didn't take a lot of price in the past. And we kind of almost, it should have been a balance sheet entry that says our values. Even after taking this price, and the average chicken burrito across the country is around $8. And so it still is a really good value. I don't know if you've been to a QSR place lately, but buying a combo meal and stuff is north of $10. I mean, it's things have gotten expensive, right? For everybody feels that. So we're not immune, but we've established a lot of great relationships with a lot of different suppliers. I mean, the biggest one that affects us is beef is just like every day. It's like the Dow Jones. It's up, it's down, it's all over the place. But our commitment to food with integrity makes things a lot harder for us too. I mean, we have to get a lot of beef from Australia because there isn't enough pasture-raised, grass-fed beef that Chipotle uses to source it domestically. You mentioned the pigs. We don't buy any conventionally raised pork. If you go to a conventional pork where they use gestation crates and that pig just sits in that crate for its whole life, I don't know if you were starting that today that you could do it. I mean, it seems very inhumane. And I'm a huge carnivore, but that seems a little rough. And so we don't buy any conventionally raised pork. All of our pork is the pigs are free to roam. We think it makes the product better. We know the pigs are happy. We feel better about it. We have some of the toughest animal welfare standards in the industry. So that makes it harder to source. So there was one instance with Chipotle where they couldn't get enough conventionally raised pork, so they were just out. So we just didn't have it. We're trying to avoid those things, but it's real. It's a real problem, and you'll see, I think, more. But we're trying not to get ahead of the price, but we're trying to react pretty quickly because we don't obviously want to get too far behind. But we don't want to take it. But it's one of those realities. But we still think we're a really good value. We still think we've got a lot of room to play if we had to, but it's never fun. That's not how we want to grow. It's through price. We want to grow through more people coming in for sure.
Awesome. That's like value and quality over anything else.
Well, and value it's not necessarily just price. Value is what you can get for what you pay.
Yeah.
Not just the absolute price point. The absolute price point can be important, but our value is what you get.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And back to the sustainability. Last year, Chipotle was in the Super Bowl with "Could a burrito change the world?" And it's an epic spot. It hammers home the values of the brand really, really well. This year you're not in it, but you're all over sports. I mean, you have these organic ambassadors of the brand day in and day out. So how are you approaching sports this year? Why did you make the decision not to be in the game? And what does the year look like?
Yeah, look, as you guys know, doing a Super Bowl is a big deal. And even last year, we didn't really set out to be in the Super Bowl. What we noticed in 2020 as we were approaching 2021 was consumers really want to know what your values are. And so we wanted to tell all those stories to people. A friend of mine asked me one time, he goes, well, look, if two people are talking to Whole Foods about Chipotle, what do you want them to say? And I thought that was a great catalyst for how do we tell people whether it's animal welfare, whether it's food with integrity, the organic cilantro story, whether it's how we treat our employees. I'm like, I want you to tell the story that's relevant to you. And so, but we knew that consumers in 2020 would value ways. Values have always been important, but man, it really got to be important in 2020. So we did a brief for some of our existing agencies as well as some outside, and we said, hey, give us a story, give us a story in a spot that tells that food with integrity story. And our agency Venables came back with a great piece of work called "Can a Burrito Change the World?" The answer is one burrito can't, but the way we make it just might. I looked at it and I thought, oh man, this was like September of 20. That's what made the great Super Bowls. And there's a lot. A Super Bowl is a whole launch in and of itself. There's a lot that's around, and we don't have a $300 or $400 million media plan like other brands that I've worked on. And so, but we put it in. We put chips in. I think it was really well received. But the most important thing for us making that spot, though, was we made our employees feel proud of it. And so I think that when you have that kind of, it says we're back. We're at the biggest game. Chipotle never been in the Super Bowl before. Here we're going with a food with integrity message, not about a new product or something like that. So it was a real good, and we felt like if we made a spot that the employees liked, it would be just fine. And so turned out really good. I think maybe we'll be in next year. I think it just depends. This year we kind of had to make a choice. Are we going to be in the Super Bowl or do we want to be advertising the Olympics? We chose that we're advertising the Olympics. but there's a lot of debate over Super Bowl's a good spend, whatever it is. I still think it's a really good spend. It's the only place where the commercials are the story almost as much as the game. And if you have the right spot, we can spend a whole hour talking about that. Well, if you have the right spot, and I feel like we sort of felt like we had the right spot, and it worked out. We'll have to, you got to start now. The next time you get the right thing, and maybe it'll be the right time. You got to kind of gauge what people are ready and receptive to.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And your point about employees and like where we are with finding talent, I can't imagine that the values are just not a huge driver of talent into the organization, and a way to change it too.
We've been lucky so far. We haven't, but so there's two pieces. There's like our headquarters group and our, and those teams, and then there's everybody out in the field. There was a lot of pressure on us. We literally went from a situation last year where we were kind of fully staffed in the beginning of March, and then by middle of April, all of a sudden we had 25% of our restaurants were right on the verge of being critically understaffed. So we were closing, sometimes the make line was closed, sometimes people closed the front line. We upped the average wage, we did our benefits, we started marketing it more. We're kind of back now to where we need to be from an employment standpoint, but it has been rough, and a part of the price increases had to happen because we had to pay people more. And so, that put a lot of pressure on us. It certainly suppressed some of our growth. We probably lost 300 to 400 basis points of comp sales in the fourth quarter because we're closed in some places. From a headquarters standpoint, we've been a little fortunate. One of the things we set out to do when we came is, look, we're going to pay people a certain competitive salary, but we want to be in the top 10 or 20% of all companies in a long-term comp standpoint, so that people can benefit as the company grows. Our stock has grown 4 or 5 times over the last few years, so that tends to keep people around. So we'll see. I mean, we have a lot of vesting that happens over the next few months, but I think that we built a great team that has good chemistry. I've interviewed every single person on my team. By the time they get to me, we know they can do the job. They're pretty good. But I interview them really for fit, and I call it the conference room test. So if I'm interviewing somebody, I have to imagine, look, if it's 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon, we have to go in a conference room for someone. Am I going to be happy to see that person? Or am I going to be sad? Like, here's a pro tip: don't hire the sad ones.
What's the question? What's the one question that you ask that you can make good?
I don't think it's one. I ask, but I just, one question I always ask them is, hey, everybody's, some things to work on, whatever. But if I ask the people on your team, if I ask them about you, what would they say? Good and bad. And what are the things that they'd say you have to work on? And I think that, it's not necessarily a question people haven't prepared for, but it gets them to think. Yeah. I also, I'm looking for people who are really creative and people who are really passionate, and they've embraced change, right? I believe honor tradition, but embrace change. But I look for people who are creative. I want people to generate a lot of ideas. I ask people, tell me the best ideas you've had in your career. Tell me why you went from place to place. Because ideas differentiate you, ideas separate you from other people, and ideas win. And I want a small, lean team that will take ideas and will put them in the market. And I tell people, look, the retail business is fast. I spent 8 years in CPG at General Mills. The retail business is very fast. It's not a place where you're, on a CPG brand, you might be 1 or 2 spots a year. We're doing a lot. And, Taco Bell, we probably did 25 spots a year. And so you have to embrace this kind of hair on fire. We have to respond. And it's not for everybody. It's not a value judgment. It's just, if you're a person who really likes to study a problem and have a predictable schedule and those things, then this retail is not. But if you like your hair on fire, you really like and you got to know yourself. I also tell them, you got to know yourself, because if you think you like that and you really don't in your heart, you're not going to like it. And so, but if you like those things, man, it'll be the best job you've ever had, because you get to do stuff, you get to put it in the marketplace, you get to see what happens, and we have to respond to them sometimes. because we can respond, we might do it too much, but I want those people with a lot of ideas and a lot of passion. That'll help us.
You know, your budgets, like you said, they're not, you know, at the level of some of your competitors, and they don't need to be, but you make some really sharp bets, and one of them was in the metaverse, and that's been a thread throughout these last couple of days. The Roblox, that was pretty awesome, and again, that's the digital brand, like on fire.
Well,
Talk
so,
about that.
yeah, I'll maybe I'll.
Are you giving us the hook here?
Yeah, again, from the God, not full hook.
Okay.
That's a good.
So it's a nice way to say it, but
Great.
yeah, but I think so. One of the things we like, so another thing, because I like those people, I guess I like to be first. So we like to be the first to try different things. So like NFTs came up, we had a great program, we thought ready to go. Then somebody's not really a competitor, but they did it. They're like, no, now we can't do it. And my number one rule of marketing that my marketing team will play back to me is don't be lame. And so I'm like, if we're going to do something, do it the right way. And the Roblox thing came up, and remember they pitched me the idea. So we like to be first. So we launched our loyalty program with Venmo back in 2019. Venmo's brands. They were one other brand, Uber, before us. We got them to change their mechanism to actually send money to people, other than people exchanging money. We did an execution at the National Spelling Bee in 2019, where we asked kids at the spelling. What brand shows up at spelling, right? But we asked kids to spell.
What's our brand to spell?
We asked kids. Well, the only ingredient that's hard to spell at Chipotle is Chipotle, right? But we asked kids to spell. That was a layup. We asked kids to spell one of our ingredients. We only have 53 ingredients. We publish it right on our website. We don't have any artificial ingredients, no preservatives. So it's ingredients like jalapeno, corn, avocado. And we asked them to spell a competitor ingredient like dimethyl polysiloxane, right? And so it was such a charming execution. It didn't cost us a lot of money. We did it. We ended up running it in theaters because it was charming. It was such a nice way to contrast this with other people. The other big change we made when we started was Chipotle was spending a lot of time worrying about it and calling what other people don't do. And what does your mom always tell you? Don't worry about everybody else, worry about yourself. So we said, we're not doing that anymore. There's enough criticism in the world. There's enough negativity. We're just going to worry about ourselves. So we went to I remember our social team was pitching me this idea of Roblox, and they're going, oh my gosh, we're going to build our own world here. We're going to have a whole Chipotle in there. And I'm like, oh my God, this has such potential to be really lame. Brands start building their own worlds and everything. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I said, well, don't be lame. They're like, they said, that's in our head every single day. And she had a lot of personal passion for it. We worked with a development company. We worked with Roblox. We created a burrito, and Halloween is a big day for Chipotle. We created the first time you could actually interact with the brand on Roblox and win something else. There were virtual things that you could do, but instead of just Robux, which is the currency there, you could actually win a free burrito.
Wasn't it the biggest day?
It was the day we launched, Roblox broke. And it broke not for an hour, it broke for 2.5 days. And at first it was like, ha ha ha, Chipotle broke Roblox. And then it was, what the hell? We did not do it. We did not do it. It was unrelated to us, but we got that day because of that happened. And even Roblox was kind enough to say it wasn't Chipotle that took us down. We had a problem. But it wasn't funny anymore at that time. We did 4.5 billion impressions. It was our #1 digital day of all time. Was Halloween last year. So again, not everything works that way, but you try stuff, do it in a way that feels very endemic. That's the other. We tailor all of our creative to whether it's Snapchat, Instagram, TV, or Roblox, or Fortnite. Everything is tailored for that place because you don't want to be lame. As soon as you show up lame, if you're going to be a culture relevant brand, you show up poorly in one of those, you just can't understand.
Totally. All right, 2 more questions. And we'll...
From you or from the audience?
Oh, you want audience questions?
Yes,
too?
audience
Maybe
questions.
audience
Go ahead.
questions.
Who's got one?
Lee, the Chipotle fan. I love what you were talking about when you came on, how Chipotle was dealing with some challenges around food safety. I work at Influential, which is an influencer marketing company. I'm curious your thoughts on when you think about partnering with athletes or influencers or creators, how do you kind of balance brand safety and sentiment while also Chipotle is such an innovative brand? while letting, these creators speak and share their authentic personality? How do you come to balance that?
Great question. Number one rule of influencers are you already have to be a Chipotle fan. And so we're looking for your mention of Chipotle, how you mention Chipotle, all of those things. Number one question to ask somebody who's their Chipotle fan or not, what's your order? If they say chicken burrito, they're not a Chipotle fan. If they say white rice, black beans, chicken, blah, 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 and go down the line, then they're a Chipotle fan. And so we're looking for people who already, we created a creator class on TikTok just to help us create content in the right way for TikTok. And we had a contest for it. We had people that we wanted to line up, but we had a contest on TikTok for the 15th creator. We had 14. And the submissions we had, look, I love Chipotle. And I live Chipotle every day, but I felt bad that I didn't care about Chipotle as much as some.
You said you talked about it being a first date place.
Yeah, Chipotle is a place a lot of times you go on your first date. So we kind of leveraged that with Bumble, and we said, hey, but the creators, I mean, one guy painted and decorated his entire room with Chipotle, and he was talented. I mean, TikTok is all, it's about how talented people are. So we try to leverage those things, but the number one rule of influencers are I have zero interest in paying somebody to extol Chipotle who already isn't a diehard fan. So we find a guy like Kyler Murray's a great example. Good dude. He was coming in Chipotle twice a week in our Arizona location, one of them. And we asked him, hey, and you want a celebrity card? He said, no, I just want to be a regular consumer. Well, the social team found out Kyler Murray really likes chess. So we made him a custom chess set, Chipotle themed. And we just sent it to him. And he loved it. Next thing you know, he's like, yeah, I'll do something. So I think that those kind of things that they do are really clever, but we're obviously looking for big fans. We just, we actually signed a small deal with Julie and Zach Ertz. So Zach was a tight end for Eagles. I think San Francisco. Anyway, he moved. Oh no, he went to Arizona. And so, but Julie was on the U.S. national team, a great player on the U.S. women's national team in soccer. And so we signed up. There were so many pictures. Another thing we found was there were so many pictures of athletes would hop off a jet with a Louis Vuitton bag in one hand and a Chipotle bag. And so we're like, hey, that's how we like to show up organically. That's pretty awesome.
All right, well, there's probably more questions in the room. We do have to stay on time because people do want to have some lunch, some Chipotle or otherwise, and so
we deliver, so if you want
yes.
to.
Thank you so